A sweeping domestic policy bill signed into law. A Massachusetts congressman is here this morning to talk about it and more. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to OTR. I'm Ed Hardy.
And I'm Charmin Sacchetti. Joining us today at the table, Congressman Jake Auchincloss. He represents Massachusetts' 4th Congressional District, including communities from Newton to Fall River. He's a Marine veteran, Harvard University graduate, and a Newton native. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to have you with us, Congressman.
Good morning.
So let's start talking about the bill, and there are just so many avenues to go in. So let's start with the state is preparing for what is expected to be a massive impact to Medicaid. Hundreds of thousands of people stand to lose their health coverage under requirements signed into law by the president. The bill also extends the 2017 tax cuts, slashes food assistance, and included no tax on tips or overtime. So, and when it's finally completed, that's a relatively narrow window too. So how do you see the impact of all this playing out here in Massachusetts?
Biggest health care cuts in American history. It's not just Medicaid. Obviously, Medicaid is the government program that bears the brunt of it. But this legislation is going to raise health care costs for everybody, because when you kick people off the Medicaid rolls, they still get sick. But instead of getting primary or preventative care, they go to hospital emergency rooms, which are the most expensive site of care. The hospital treats them. That becomes uncompensated care, and the hospitals have to cross-subsidize that through higher insurance premiums. So if you're getting health care through your employer, if you get it through the ACA exchanges, you will also pay more. Clearly, Democrats have to fight this legislation. But in the near term, the federal delegation here in Massachusetts is going to be working with Mass Health and with the governor to prepare for the waiver. So the waiver, for our viewers, is basically every 5 years, Massachusetts has asked Medicare and Medicaid, hey, can we have a waiver from some of these strings that you have attached? Because we're doing innovative things here. That waiver has become more important than ever, because we now need to own and be more autonomous with how we deliver Medicaid here in Massachusetts to see if we can cut some of these ridiculous strings they've attached with paperwork requirements and have more ownership over population health management, value-based care, good primary behavioral care management. This waiver has become now critically important, and we have to be in lockstep with the government.
What happens with for hospitals that rely on Medicaid payments? You know, just the hospital structure itself. I assume this is the ripple effect, and it would affect it accordingly, right?
It's a gut punch. There's no other way to say it. This is a gut punch to Massachusetts hospitals at a time when
we've already lost some hospitals.
We have seen, because of the Steward fiasco, that these hospitals are under pressure, and because of the cuts from the NIH, a lot of these hospitals, which are academic medical centers, are also bearing the brunts of research cuts. Another reason why this waiver becomes critically important is that this waiver would allow Massachusetts to create a different type of funding mechanism for our hospitals. But the tether between Mass Health and the federal government now has become a liability, and we need the waiver to help us gain more agency about our future.
Republicans structured this legislation so the cuts won't happen until after the midterms. And there's some question here whether or not that will impact Democrats' ability to win in the midterms. What do you make of that?
That's what campaigns are for, is tying policy to people's lives. Democrats have 18 months to make plain to the American public that this administration came in, they cut taxes for the wealthy and the well-connected, they exploded the national debt by $4 trillion, and they did so on the backs of people who need Medicaid or food benefits. It's the first bill really in American history that is not only regressive in that it disproportionately helps the wealthy, but is literally a wealth transfer from the poor to the rich. It is indefensible, and while Democrats campaign against it, we also have to be clear about what we're for, right? We would have worked with the administration on extending the middle class tax cuts, you know, the higher standard deduction, the child tax credit. But we would have balanced the impact of that on the deficit by asking the wealthy to pay a little bit more, by closing the capital gains loopholes, by raising that top marginal income tax rate a little bit, through inheritance tax, like just a little bit more from the wealthiest to extend the middle class tax cuts and protect Medicaid.
Let's move to the situation in Ukraine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says aid to Ukraine is continuing along schedule that Congress has already appropriated, and it comes as the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, failed to inform the White House that he had authorized a pause on weapons shipments to Ukraine, something that Rubio said was mischaracterized. He said it was a pause pending review of specific munitions. What is your reaction to, I'll use the word mishegas, but what is your reaction to this?
I've long said that we have a JV national security team, and now we're seeing it, right? Rubio says one thing, Hegseth says another thing. They asked Trump about it. He looks like a deer in the headlights, has no idea what's going on. The Kremlin perceives that as weakness, rightfully, and the one thing you can't be with Vladimir Putin is weak. We need strength. Take that 300 billion euros of Russian assets held in Brussels, reappropriate it, and direct it towards arming Ukraine and fielding a top-notch border security force, help it build out a military-industrial complex in western Ukraine, authorize it to use long-range missiles to strike Russian oil refineries. These are things I've been saying to Joe Biden and to Donald Trump. It's not a partisan issue, it's just a national security issue. We do those, we project strength to Russia, and that is how you bring someone to the negotiating table.
What do you make of President Trump's publicly sort of shifting position on Putin?
Trump's instinct is to supplicate himself to Vladimir Putin. We've seen this since the infamous 2018 Helsinki conference, where he took Putin's side over the CIA side. He has this like weird fanboy thing with Vladimir Putin. He really likes him. He wants Putin. He wants Putin's approval and respect. It's kind of pathetic, and yet that core instinct is set up against his entire national security apparatus that is saying they are hammering Ukraine, and the weakness you are projecting to Russia has repercussions to China and the Indo-Pacific and to Iran and the Middle East, because this is an axis of authoritarians. And I think gradually Trump is being dragged to that point of view, but at the cost of how much Ukrainian blood and treasure.
Can Ukraine count on the United States?
No. Who would say that they could count on Donald Trump? Look at our allies and his tariff letters. Nobody can count on Donald Trump.
Let's talk. The New York Times is reporting some of Iran's enriched uranium actually survived the U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. So Iranian nuclear engineers may have access to it, according to a senior Israeli official quoted by the Times. Now, experts are still trying to determine how long it will take for Iran to rebuild its nuclear program. You've said these attacks did make the world safer. What does this new information tell you?
Well, it's not new information, at least not to me. The goal of the strikes is about degrading Iran's capability to take uranium that's at 60% and turn it into first weapons-grade uranium, and then to take that weapons-grade uranium and put it on top of a ballistic missile. So there's a number of sequences that have to be done. These strikes radically reduced Iran's ability to literally take a nuclear bomb and drop it on Israel, which is its stated aim, for a number of reasons that we don't have to dive into here. But if you look at the world on October 7th, 2023, you had Israel surrounded by 6 terror armies. You had Iran exporting oil and funding this terror regime and marching towards a nuclear weapon. Fast forward a couple of years, what do we have now? 4 of those 6 terror armies have been destroyed. 2 of the 6 have been boxed in, and Iran is now weaker than it has been since the Ayatollah took power. That is a safer world.
All right, you're a founding member of a new group. It's called Majority Democrats. I want to ask you about that. You're looking to change the party's image, recruit new candidates. What is this all about? Is the middle the goal here?
What the goal here is to explain to Americans what Democrats are for. Americans know what Democrats are against, Donald Trump, and rightfully so. They don't know what we are for, and because they don't know what we're for, we're perceived as being for the status quo, and the status quo is broken. Costs are spiraling, people don't have confidence in law and order. Democrats need to draw with a fresh box of crayons. Big ideas, new leaders. How are we going to radically reduce the cost of housing and health care for the middle class? How are we going to deliver excellence in education by peeling the bark off the social media corporations and making them pay to fix what they've broken? How can we set a big scientific North Star of curing Alzheimer's by mid-century? Ideas that enliven our base and also orient us towards those swing voters.
Generational changes as well?
I think generational change is part of it, but generational change is a constant. What is necessary are the ideas. The Democratic Party has exhausted itself over the last decade by fighting Donald Trump. And because of that, we don't have the intellectual dynamism that you need, I think, to attract new voters. And so we've got to put ideas out there and then have a tight feedback loop with voters about what ideas are resonating and what are not. And that's the goal of this organization.
You want to talk about TikTok?
Please.
We will do that after the break. Stay with us.